Hello, and welcome back to Terri Reid's Attic, a place where we share stories of things that go bump in the night. Sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy the stories.
I have a great deal of admiration and gratitude for police officers and their families. These are men and women who leave their homes every day to protect us, and they never know if they're going to come home or not. I've had the honor of receiving a number of emails from officers or their family members who have read the Mary O'Reilly series and are grateful for my portrayal of police officers as people first, law enforcement professionals second. Amazing people, I might add. A couple of weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast about the famous Chicagoland ghost, Resurrection Mary. During the podcast, a listener emailed in about an experience his father, a Chicago police officer, had witnessed. This listener recalled the day his dad had come home from work with a look of shock on his face. The entire family was so worried that they gathered around him to ask him what happened. He explained that he had been driving down Archer Avenue and saw a woman walking down the road dressed in a white ball gown. It was freezing outside, so he turned the squad car around to ask if she needed help. He pulled alongside, looked out the window, and realized he could see right through her. Then she disappeared before his eyes. He had actually seen Resurrection Mary. I decided that police officers, just like nurses, probably have these kinds of encounters more often than the average person, so I decided to do a little research. I'd like to share some of the stories I found on the internet, told by the officers who actually experienced them. So, this episode is dedicated to those who stand on the thin blue line, protecting all of us and keeping us safe. My niece's husband is a police officer. He talked about a weird case they had where a guy walked into the station and turned himself in. He admitted to murdering a young girl sometime back in the early 2000s. Then he threw her body in the trunk of his car and took her to a wooded area where he used to go fishing, and he buried her there. The police wanted him to take them to the spot, but he refused. He would only agree to draw a map of the area and mark the spot. He wouldn't go there under any circumstances. When they asked why not, he claimed that the last time he had driven up there, in his headlights, he saw the ghost of the little girl standing right near the spot he had buried her. He got out of there as quick as he could, he said, but as soon as he turned his car around and started driving away, he heard a banging sound coming from the rear of his car, as though someone was pounding from inside of the trunk. He said that he'd never go back there again. The next story. I've seen a lot of things in my career, things that would make an ordinary citizen kind of doubt my sanity. I've been dispatched to chase UFOs. I've even responded to calls of ghosts. But the most unusual thing that happened to me was witnessed by several officers and a dispatcher. So one evening, I brought this guy in for domestic violence, and he was pretty rowdy. So I was joined in booking him by the sergeant and another patrolman. So I'm in the process of booking this Mr. Tough Guy when I glanced into cell 1. I see there's a guy there. Short haircut, glasses, white t-shirt, and he's just staring at us. I ignored him because I really didn't want him to start banging on the window demanding a phone call or something. So I finished the booking process and escort Mr. Tough Guy to his cell, and I walk right past cell 1. Guy in cell 1 just stood there, never saying a word or moving. Then we all leave booking and go about our business. So sometime later, the sergeant calls me, and he wants me to check the paperwork for the prisoners to see if any were ready to transport to the county jail. So, I grab the paperwork and go into booking to do a head count. Crap, cell number 1 is empty. I panic and tell the sergeant, who also panics, and he and I begin to make phone calls to the detectives to see if they had moved the guy or if they had released him. They all say they didn't go into booking at all. So then I go over and I check the computer and the paperwork. And guess what? The head count's accurate. No one had been placed in cell number 1. So we're freaking out. We go to the dispatch office to check the surveillance video for the booking. We rewind the footage to where I can be seen booking my prisoner. Then we fast forward it to the point in the video where we all walk out of booking. As soon as we walk past the door, the guy in cell 1, he just blinks out of existence. We were all totally freaked out by the occurrence, believe you me. When we tried to transfer the video to a DVD or a USB drive, the guy in cell 1 doesn't even appear. We still hear and see stuff every now and then, and prisoners in the detox tank, they can be seen talking to someone in the direction of cell 1, even though cell 1 is empty. To this day, I avoid cell 1 as much as I can. The next story. Over 20 years ago, I took an alarm call at the old PTA building across the street from a courthouse in Austin, Texas. The alarm had already gone quiet when I showed up with a senior officer. We found an unsecured door slightly open on the east side, so he posted me there while he finished the perimeter check, and, the other officers arrived. I was staring right at the door when the alarm activated again and the door slammed shut right in my face, loudly. The senior officer ran back to my position and asked me why I closed the door. I told him I didn't. We called for K-9 and the dog arrived shortly. I went in with K-9 to clear the building. We didn't find anything, but the entire time the dog was acting really hinky, like someone was in the building, but he wasn't picking up a scent. We secured the building, and then a key holder showed up. He said, "Well, the place is haunted, right?" No, we didn't. So then he tells us the ghost was a secretary that worked there for about 30 years, and after she died, she keeps showing up for work. Papers fly off the desks, doors close, there's sightings of her walking through the halls, the works. We both told the key holder, next time the alarm sounds, the call's all his. Next story. A couple of years back, I was patrolling around 0300, 0400. I drive past a small airport in my jurisdiction that is in the middle of the woods. It has a couple of hangars and one main office building. I drive by it a few times at night because it's been broken into in the past. On this particular night, I'm driving by and I hear an audible alarm sounding from inside. I wasn't dispatched and I didn't receive any calls about it, but I call it in and walk up to the building, which is completely dark and not occupied. Every point of entry is secure. So I'm now waiting on the key holder to let me in to clear the inside. I figure a loose door, the wind, something tripped the alarm. The key holder comes out with his wife in a couple minutes, and they open up the door for me. I clear the entire office, a garage, everything. Nothing's disturbed. The key holder is confused, as the alarm is not a motion alarm or an alarm system. The key holder explains to me that the alarm is coming from a cash register that was opened inside the office. The cash register could only be opened by pressing a hidden button, which I'll say was extremely well hidden without going into too much detail. The only people who knew where the button was located was he, his wife, and his deceased father. He told me the cash register closes and locks, and without pressing this button, it couldn't possibly be open. It was not an oversight either, as I had driven by several hours before and heard nothing. The money was not disturbed. However, the register was all the way opened. Then the key holder smiled and told me that his father had created and owned the airport before he passed away, and that airplanes, and this place in particular, were his passion and his life's work. Then the key holder told me that he believes his father does things like this to bring his family to the airport, just to say hello and make his presence known. I guess I don't have any other explanation for it. I hope you've enjoyed these stories from police officers about their paranormal experiences. Our next episode will have even more stories from the thin, maybe thinner than we thought, blue line. Thank you for listening to Terri Reid's Attic. If you enjoyed the stories, please consider becoming one of our supporters. Look for us on YouTube, as well as through your favorite podcast provider. If you have a question or comment, please email us at stories@terrireid.com. That's stories@terrireid.com. Until next time, let me leave you with an old Celtic prayer. From ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, good Lord, deliver us.